July the 1st, 2021. Guys, this is the latest tracking information from the National Hurricane Center. And if you look back at the video before this, you'll see one major difference, and that the storm is tracking a little more south and a little more to the west towards Texas. And what has happened, this section of the cone on the right side of this white area, which again just represents the center circulation, has moved from almost over the Bahamas now to just off the east coast of Florida. And what that's going to do is, according to this information and the other tracking models, definitely put the storm back into the Gulf of Mexico. And so you've got, again, storm is currently at 45 miles an hour sustained winds, and it's moving fast west-northwest at 28 miles per hour. Let's take a look at some of the other models. We'll look at the radar. Now, here is a large group of the different models that we watch every year. Here's the location of Elsa now. It's approaching the Leeward and Windward Islands. A lot of these models were further out and to the right. You had a few that were crossing the Bahamas, but now the majority, even the ones that we watch a lot, the Canadian model and NavGem from the Navy, are pulling the storm back west and into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's the big deal on the video tonight. Earlier today we were talking about watching it on the East Coast, and that it had moved out more or less out of the Gulf, according to some of the models. We knew that would change, but this happened just within a few hours. But right now, again, most of the models are keeping this thing into the Gulf of Mexico. All of it's crossing Cuba. One thing about this, the models that are staying a little further south and curving a little further west into the Gulf are crossing much less land instead of coming over the islands here, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and all these islands, Haiti, staying further south and in between these islands. It doesn't tear the storm apart in the center circulation. That's important to watch, because that would bring a stronger storm into the Gulf of Mexico this coming Monday. Now, this is a look at the wide Atlantic view, and you can see as the sun sets and everything's moving west. In the very center of the screen, or off right to the center, is Tropical Storm Elsa. Coming through the Windward Islands that we saw, and this happened Wednesday, was the first storm. And I've always said, let's keep an eye on this thing, because if it stays south of the islands, just like the projected path of Elsa is, then you may have some problems from this front storm. We just have to keep an eye on it. There is some upper level wind shear that you can see as it's tearing the top off the clouds and moving across the islands, but there's still a center circulation. So just keep an eye on it, because it could bring tropical depression that would add extra moisture in before what might become a hurricane. Also behind this, and I mentioned this in the video this afternoon about, and we looked at the software called Windy on the website, that there was a center of circulation at low levels in this storm. So watch for this thing to become a watch storm in the next few days. Also, it's just a chain event or training event coming off the coast of Africa. So it's that time of the year, and it looks like they're lining up. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But right now, again, Windward Islands, this thing's going to be on you tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow night. And by this Sunday, which is the 4th of July, being in the Cuba area, the next day emerging now further west into the Gulf of Mexico. So if it does that, and that's the change would be, because when we see this high pressure over the Atlantic that we see in the orange and yellows on some of the pressure models, then that obviously has tightened up and is going to continue to push left in this image or to the west, and that is the steering factor of these hurricanes once they get to this point. So obviously they're looking at that high pressure increasing in strength, and so now we're looking at, more than likely from the model, somewhere in the Florida Panhandle area. And of course, that can change. But guys, we have to go with what we have on the information that we have. And my job is to let you know what we have. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to make the video real long. You saw the projected paths. You see the images in the radar. So keep an eye on it. Don't let your guard down, and you can rely on this channel for your morning and evening updates, and more than that if we need it, because these things can get very serious. I've dealt with them for 60 years of my life, being on the Gulf Coast. And so I understand how they work. And now with the technology that we have as far as the satellite imagery, radar, then it really gives you an insight to what they're doing. And the reason I learned so much over these years is because it was actually a life and death situation. I had to depend on this information because I love the salt water. I love the ocean. I love boats. I have salt water in my blood. And I live in central Mississippi. I've lived in the southern parts of Louisiana and caught these big alligator gars that you see on Swamp People with Troy Landry and that bunch. I've been there, done that as a young kid. I understand how these things work, and it's a blessing to me that I can share it with you, but it again comes from an interest of how Mother Nature works, how God works, and how the planet is working right now. We're in grand solar minimum. The surface layers of both the land masses and the surface of the ocean are overheated because the weak shields allow this UV penetration. You see it in your gardens. You can see it on your skin. And you can see it in the storm formations that we're starting to see now. I've talked about one thing, and that is how active the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico has been. Even though we haven't seen but a couple of tropical formations there that never really got real strong, it's been super active. Florida, you're still getting rains, and I saw in the comments to where people were saying the ground is saturated. If we get a big hurricane or storm, the trees are not going to be able to handle it. And then you're looking in Miami to where they had to shut down the search and rescue today in the condo collapse that has been going on for years, according to the new reports, and you've seen them. But they had to shut it down because they were afraid the remaining parts of the building would fall on the rescue team. So you've got storms coming in each day. Lately we've seen more and more rain. Videos coming out to where the basement of the building would fill up with rain before the collapse. You got a sister building that there's voluntary evacuations out for now. It may become mandatory, but there's no way. If I was in Miami and I saw this coming and I was in one of those condos that for years you've seen the bottom braces crack, the bottom pylons, you've seen the parking lot crack and shift, you see cracks in your walls, would I stay there with an event that would make this much water come in, this much wind into South Florida? More than likely, either way it goes, whether it's east or west, you're going to be affected there. It's a good time to take a vacation up into the beautiful state of Mississippi. Come to the coast here, unless the storm is coming in there. We'll know more about that. If so, go up in the Smoky Mountains. It's beautiful there too. But don't be caught in a 20-story condo in this type of weather and wind when it's already crumbling below you. So if you guys aren't aware of that, just start looking at the information and about that area. There was some paid off stuff going on, but anyway, it's a crumbling infrastructure in that area, and I think it has a lot to do with when you build on this island that's Florida, or peninsula that's Florida, at sea level. Eventually that's going to affect the substructure and what you build on, what you pour your structure, what you pour your concrete slabs and your pylons on, and that's starting to affect Florida. So guys, be prepared for that. But this is your heads up on the storm. Pay attention to it. We're getting into the season. So heads up, be safe.